Welcome to the Lois Strachan channel on YouTube. I'm Lois, and today we're going to be doing another behind the scenes look at the writing and the origin story of one of my published books. This time, the book Pause for Thought, Seeing the World Through the Eyes of the Guide Dog, which is the story of my third guide dog, Fiji. And the origin story of this book, well, to get to that point, I think we need to take a step aside and let me introduce Fiji to you. As I say, Fiji was my third guide dog. She was a yellow Labrador crossed with a golden retriever, and we worked together from February 2016 through to October 2023. And Fiji and I led a very adventurous life. We had a lot of experiences. We did a lot of things. And it just occurred to me one day while I was sitting reflecting on what I might write about in my following installment of my weekly blog, that there might be something there to write about. So the blog is the Beyond Sight blog. I try to write about one post a week, very seldom more than that. And it's short blogs that are based on my life as a blind woman, looking at my work, looking at my life, looking at things that happen to me, for me, around me, and yeah, just how I do things in my life. So it's quite a broad-based content. And regularly, while I was writing my blogs, I would find that my guide dogs would pop up in the stories. And as I was sitting there at that first week in June 2017, I was really struggling to find a topic to write about. It happens to everyone, that kind of writer's block moment where you're staring at the screen and you go, hmm, what on earth is there to talk about today? And then my guide dog caught my attention, and I looked down at her. She was sitting at my feet, and she looks up at me, and I thought, huh, Fiji can write a blog for my Beyond Sight blog. And that became the first of the Pause for Thought blogs. And as I say, those articles she would write usually on the first Tuesday of the month. And I would try to post a blog from her perspective in her voice. And that continued right the way through until she passed away in October 2023. The beauty of the Pause for Thought blogs is it gave me an opportunity to take a step back from how I saw the world, how I experienced the world, and look at it from a slightly different perspective. After all, most of my brand work is done under the name of a different way of seeing. So it was yet another way of showing a different way of seeing the world as a blind person. But it also gave me the opportunity to comment on some of the oddities that life offers us, and from Fiji's perspective. So all of the blogs are written in Fiji's voice. And the very first one starts off, "Hello, everyone. It's me, Fiji." And that became the trend for those blogs. Not all of them, but almost all of them start that way. So how then was the blog the origin of a book? As I shared Fiji's experiences, I realized what a wealth of information I had. I mean, the blogs cover all sorts of things from Fiji's perspective. They talk about air travel, they talk about going to speaking events, going to do advocacy work, going out and about into the world, going to restaurants, queuing in shops. They talk about her life being just a normal dog with her siblings, the other dogs that my husband and I have. They talk about other animals that she encounters on her walks, like her hated enemies, squirrels, and other odd animals that she somehow seemed to encounter out and about, like rabbits and chickens and horses. And, well, if you want to know more about those, you'll have to read the book or the blog, I guess. And then, because I was looking for a new writing project, my husband actually suggested to me, why don't you gather Fiji's blog posts together and publish those as a book? And, at the time, it seemed like a really great idea because there was so much conversation being generated by the blog posts. People were commenting on social media. They were commenting on the posts themselves when I shared them on my website. And it was really lovely to see the conversations that were starting around the content that Fiji and I were sharing. So we started the process of gathering the blog posts together. This happened initially in 2020 while we were going through the pandemic. I didn't have much work out there in the world, and it gave me more time to be sitting at my desk and looking at a writing project. And I decided to finish the first edition of the book in December 2020, as we were starting to come out of the pandemic, as the world was starting to go back to normal, and I anticipated that we would be back out in the world, which of course we were. So that was the origins of the book, was those Pause for Thought blogs. But that isn't everything that was in the first edition of the book, because that wasn't the whole story. And I realized when I started looking at the blogs as I put them together, I realized that there was a lot of the story that wasn't there. After all, Fiji was only posting once a month. And there were so many other stories that hadn't made it into the blog. Stories about her life before she and I were partnered. Stories about our journey together, building the bond through our initial, when we were on training together at the South African Guide Dogs Association for the Blind, and then starting working out in the world. And then, of course, there were other stories about what was happening for Fiji as just a dog, when she wasn't being a guide dog, or as she puts it, when she wasn't guide dogging. And the stories of playing and the things she enjoyed doing just around being a beloved animal in a home where she is well looked after and engaged with, not only by the humans, but also by her doggy siblings, of which Fiji did have a fair number. And if you want to know more about those, you'll also have to read about them in the book. So that was where we went. And what we landed up with was a book that had 3 parts. The first chapter is all about Fiji's early life and up to the point where we were completed our training. The second section of the book is a collection of those blogs. And then the third section is really more stories of Fiji's life and her and my adventures together. And that became the first edition. And I'm going to show you the cover, not of the first edition, but of the second edition, because when I published a second edition, and I'll be doing another video about that, the story of going from the first edition to the second and why I did that. I'll be doing another video about that, which will also go up in these behind the scenes videos. But let me just show you the cover of the book. There you are. Pause for Thought, Seeing the World Through the Eyes of a Guide Dog. And the second edition is available on my website, loisstrachan.com. It's available through Amazon as an ebook and as a print book. And it's also available on Audible as an audiobook. So you'll find it on all three of those channels. And if you would like to read it, I'd love for you to learn to meet and learn to love Fiji as much as I did. Thank you for joining me on this video on the Lois Strachan channel, on the behind the scenes playlist. If you enjoyed the video, please share, comment, or like it. And if you are interested in learning more about my books, my writing, my speaking, my work, advocacy work as a blind person living a very full and productive life, and yeah, it would be great if you could subscribe to my channel. So it was great to have you with us today on the video about Pause for Thought, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.